Key thing we have to start with is the inherent instability of credit. Okay? We do not want to be adopting a mental framework that somehow says the financial system is equilibrating and stable all by itself, and we don't have to manage it. Okay? That's not Bagehot's point of view. That's not my point of view. Okay? But we need to understand, well, what are the endogenous forces within it causing it to blow up? You know, where the shadow banking system is kind of new. You know, we have heard from other authors in the history of money and credit what they thought the endogenous forces were causing their systems to blow up. Okay, we've heard from Hawtrey. Okay, he was the one who coined this phrase, the inherent instability of credit, for the British banking system in 1919. Minsky famously stabilizing an unstable economy. So he's saying it's inherently unstable. And what are the sources of that instability? He's mostly focused on business credit. It doesn't have anything to do with shadow banking. Okay? Adrian and Shin, Adrian being at the New York Fed and Shin being at Princeton, have a little paper called Liquidity and Leverage, which is an attempt to try to understand the sources of instability that come from the dealer balance sheet. Okay? And they don't use the Trainer model to think about that, but I will. And I'm going to just make a little argument that you're going to see how that worked. Remember, the dealers are key here. Okay, the Trainer model is about equities, and so you have a downward sloping, and I see people nodding. Good. By this time in the semester, you should know about the Trainer model. Okay, and I'm just reminding you here that if there were matched book positions are net out, but they could be very large. These are speculative positions, and they need to be funded. And what dealers do is to create market liquidity by moving imbalances in order flow onto their own balance sheet. This is all very familiar to all of you by now. So now let's move this into shadow banking. Here's a way to understand the boom. Remember my little model of shadow banking. Okay, there's asset managers on one side. Okay, and what are they doing? They're accumulating cash positions and credit risk exposure. Okay, and there's shadow banks on the other side, or capital funding banks. Okay, which need money market funding, and they're hedging their exposure, and it's all passing through the dealers. Okay, so now let's think about a disequilibrium, a dynamical version of this, where the asset manager flows are pushing against the dealers faster than the shadow banks can pull that stuff off. Okay, so that's distorting the balance sheet of the dealer, right? There's more pushing in one direction than pushing back in the other direction. And what do dealers do? They're market makers, and so they absorb that temporary imbalance on their own balance sheet. And in doing so, it pushes prices around. So I'm showing here in the money market, okay, that interest rates are pushed down, okay, because you have all of these asset managers really wanting to put money to work. They want money substitutes, okay, pushing interest rates down, and they want risk exposure. So they're pushing risk premium down, okay, in these derivative markets or their equivalent, okay. So the order flows are pushing prices around. And they're pushing prices around in exactly the way to make it very profitable to set up a capital funding bank, because you can borrow cheaply, okay, and these assets are highly valued, okay. So this is the boom. Remember, where are we going? This is about inherent instability. The inherent instability here is coming from the fact that prices are being distorted by these order flows, okay. The prices are sort of wrong. They're causing more shadow banking to be set up than our models of equilibrium, which are matched book models, okay, would have. Once it gets overbuilt, it then starts to go the other way. And so I'm showing now where if the cash flows that are coming from the asset managers now are less than the needs for refunding and funding of the shadow banks, okay, the distortion on the dealer's balance sheet goes the other way, okay. Interest rates are rising, risk premium are rising, okay. They're pushed in on the other side of matched book, okay. Their exposures are that way. As long as, you know, so prices move, so shadow banks now look unprofitable. You've set them up, and now the prices are moving, and so they look unprofitable. Somebody should take a loss somewhere, okay? If that loss is on the balance sheet of the dealers, though, I'm showing that their funding, their ability to hold a position, okay, is shrinking. Their ability, because they've lost capital, their ability to actually hold inventories. So there's a shift back in their financing limits, both the money dealer and the risk dealer. So there's a little gap there, excess exposure, okay, for both these dealers that they have to liquidate, okay. And remember how the trainer works. The trainer model works. There's an inside spread and there's an outside spread. And when you have to liquidate, it's the outside spread. And who is the outside spread? Okay, it's the central bank. It's the central bank. That's what happened. So that's a story about the boom-bust cycle, okay, in a shadow banking system and the role of the central bank in backstopping that system, a story that has a lot of the flavor of the Hawtrey, Minsky kind of tradition, but is updated for modern times. It's a starting place. I don't say that this is the final story. It's an attempt to start to come to grips with how this modern world works.